The Wage and Hour Division of the U.S. Department of Labor has already adopted the Biden administration's commitment to enforcement, its movement against arbitration agreements, and a fresh view on worker classification. Today, we look more closely at what employers can expect from the new approach at the DOL. For more, we turn to Epstein, Becker Greens, David Garland, and Paul DeCamp, and guest John Steingart, a senior reporter for Law 360.
John, you really bring a unique perspective to us today, both because you're a lawyer that's practiced in the labor law field, but also, and more recently, as a reporter. So given your unique perspective, what are you seeing now, and what are you expecting in the way of enforcement changes from the Department of Labor, particularly when it comes to wage and hour enforcement?
With new officials coming in the Biden administration, they just have a very different background from the officials who staffed the department during the Trump administration. So I think that the Trump administration really had this approach oriented more towards compliance assistance, of helping employers make sure they understand their obligations so that they can stay on the right side of the law. What I think we'll start seeing from the Biden administration is a bit more of an enforcement orientation.
John, through your reporting on this subject over the years, what are you hearing now from those in the administration about where we're headed, where the department's headed, the Biden administration is headed on worker classification?
President Biden campaigned in support of a federal ABC test. So that's definitely something to watch. It could be done at the Department of Labor and in the agencies. It could be done legislatively. Something else to note is that the Trump administration had promulgated regulations on independent contractor classification under the Fair Labor Standards Act. And they finalized those regulations pretty close to the end of President Trump's term. And they were set to take effect a few weeks into the Biden administration. So one of the very first actions that the Biden administration did on January 20th, on Inauguration Day, was to just send out a memo government-wide telling all of the agencies, if you have any regulations that are in progress but are not yet effective, freeze them. And that's exactly what the Department of Labor and others did.
Paul, I'd like to ask you, what's some practical advice you can share with employers given this really significant change in enforcement approach?
It changes the risk calculus for employers in dealing with change. When they find that they have a practice that arguably violates the Fair Labor Standards Act, the biggest question for employers has always been, what do we do about this? Whereas for a long time, there had been this avenue of self-reporting to DOL. Now that one option appears to be off the table. It's unclear whether it will be completely off the table or just largely off the table, but it is now no longer available. So when employers are thinking about how do we follow through with change management and whether we follow through with change management, they now have to consider the fact that if they simply pay back wages without obtaining a binding release, they are facing the possibility that somebody could come after them later and demand more money.
Thanks, David, Paul, and John. You can listen to an extended podcast of this conversation at employmentlawthisweek.com or on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.